Hey doing everybody, ABC Action News Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips wanted to give you an update on Friday, see how things have changed from Thursday night. It is certainly not Diet Dr. Pepper time yet, but as we get into next week, it probably will be. No real changes from last night. Couple of things I want to go over. First of all, as I scroll through apps, TikTok, X, Facebook, I see a lot of folks who like weather or are trying to do whatever it is they're trying to do, posting maps of worst case scenarios. And even worse than that, posting maps of 850 millibar maps. Now, what's an 850 map? Well, if you look on the top, you'll see 850 and then a timestamp. 850 is the winds at about 3,000 to 5,000 feet. So unless you live at 3,000 to 5,000 feet or you're flying around out at 3,000 to 5,000 feet, the winds that you're seeing on that map are simply not accurate the majority of the time. They're going to be lower at the surface. So again, when you're looking at information for a storm, a tropical storm, a hurricane, pick your sources. There's a lot of really reputable sources out there. You pick one that you trust, one that you feel comfortable with. And if that happens to be me, I appreciate it. But at this point in time, I tell you this because as we go through the weekend, and my experience of doing this for a long time, you're going to see anything and everything out there, and sometimes to create hype, and sometimes to create panic. I don't know why, but it just happens. So here's the bottom line. We have a storm that eventually will become Tropical Storm Idalia. That appears to be the highest likelihood of happening, okay? But it's going to be running into a sheared environment. Now, I won't get into what that really means, but it means it's less likely for it to develop. Now, the big question mark, and we all know this, is the water temperature. It is very warm. Now, I'll tell you, it's not unusual for the water to be really warm in August. But what's happening is a front is going to be coming down toward the beginning of next week, and that's going to coax the system, whatever it is, whether it's a blob of rain or depression or a storm, or potentially it even could be a minimal hurricane in some spots, to curve to the northeast toward Florida. In other words, it's a pattern that's very similar and reminiscent of either June or October. It's kind of rare, this kind of a setup, which is why I think it is coming to Florida. But what it is still a big question mark. Again, it could be a blob. It could be a lot of things. It doesn't exist yet. The models have a tough enough time, as do meteorologists. We have a tough enough time getting the weather right when we see something there. When it isn't there yet, it makes it even trickier. So my suggestion, ignore the maps that are trying to create hype, because that's all they're doing. Stick with your trusted source, and when we see an actual surface low develop, which I think will be later this weekend, and then it'll have about a day and a half to lift northeast, and it will be accelerating as it does. Imagine like a giant snowball going down a hill. It's going to start accelerating faster, which is good in a sense that it goes through quicker. The negative part of that is sometimes that relative speed as it goes faster can actually influence the winds, how it impacts a certain area. But again, I don't want to get too sciencey this early in the day, but I'm just letting you know that as we look at this, timetable still looks to be later Tuesday into Wednesday, wherever landfall occurs, and it could be anywhere on the west coast of Florida. It really could. Why? Because it doesn't exist yet, and we're not sure where that low actually develops. If it's more to the east, where it develops, then that track will be more south. If it's more to the west, then that track will be more north. So when we see that low, we'll have a better idea. Rule number 7, don't freak out unless I'm freaking out. We're fine. We got to keep an eye on it. We can't completely ignore it at all. You have to respect the tropical system with all that warm water. But at this point, it does not necessarily mean it's going to be any kind of a significant wind situation. I will throw one other thing out there. Wednesday is the day where we have the highest tide of the month. That's a bad thing because we've seen many tropical storms come in and create flooding at that time if it happens to coincide with high tide. And again, that's just something else we're going to be watching. So keep it right here. Find your trusted source. Go with them. And we will be giving you updates. Our team will 24/7, as always, to try to help keep you and your family safe as we make our way through hurricane season. Again, rule number 7, don't freak out. There ain't nothing to freak out about at this point.